Is it enough if you're able to cultivate millets? Production of millets without a markets is definitely not the strategy that we should be, employing. One is the demand driven, one is the supply driven. The production and the demand must grow together through a coordinated value chain. So Nutri Hub is an incubation center where you actually have the confluence of all of this. It's actually an incubation center indeed. The objective is to create access, so make it affordable. So introduce them in the school meals, in the midday meal programs, ICDS, the public nutrition programs, and then provide common facility centers, involve self-help groups. So an access has to be created for everybody. At the same time, a value also needs to be created. So definitely the opportunities are larger than the grains. So it's what I'm trying to tell is you have ample of business opportunities that have come up, especially in the last decade. You need to focus on both an accessible proposition as well as a value proposition. So that doesn't make millet only an elite food. Millets are not the only future of food, but there can be no resilient future of food without millets. Is it enough if you're able to cultivate millets? So when I say they are the best choice or the next alternative choice that you have, is it enough if you're able to produce? So production of millets without a markets is definitely not the strategy that we should be, employing. Because if you try to increase the production without creating demand, that actually has a lower impact or that could significantly reduce the prices. So creating consumer demand without building supply can also raise the prices and probably, so the situation that I'm talking about is twinfold. One is the demand driven, one is the supply driven. If you aggressively promote them without taking efforts to create a supply chain, so you're going to see a high rise in the prices. So then the affordability becomes a challenge. On the contrary, if you only promote them on the supply front without creating a demand, so you're going to have a huge production but no prices. So the market is going to be a failure in both the cases. So the efforts that we should be putting in is, on the one side you create the demand for the commodity, and on the other side you create a resilient supply chain. Okay, which means the production and the demand must grow together through a coordinated value chain. I think Indian Institute of Millets Research has created, or rather has pioneered. Okay, so I have had the privilege of working there, and in fact, the key person who has contributed to this, Dr. Dayakar Rao. So I had an opportunity to work with him for more than 4 to 5 years, wherein I had an opportunity to look into each of these actors in the value chain. So right from your input suppliers to the consumers, you're going to have variety of actors in place, and different facilitators are also there. Say for example, I talk about Nutri Hub. Okay, so Nutri Hub is an incubation center where you actually have the confluence of all of this. It's actually an incubation center indeed. Maybe there could be at least hundreds of incubation centers that you see across, but having a dedicated place for research and development, having a dedicated place for building market linkages, and also offering a support or the shared infrastructure to the startups. So that's something that you don't find everywhere. So this is a model that one should adopt, or one should be able to take it or replicate. So of course we have government agencies like APIDA, State Millet Missions, Food Corporation of India, and Indian Institute of Millets Research, the Global Center of Excellence on Millets. So all of these form the facilitation part of the value chain, but all the actors in the value chain have their own role to play. And only when through an integrated value chain effort, you will be able to have the balance of both production as well as the demand. Now, when I talk of markets, when I say create demand, create markets, I do not want or rather a situation shouldn't arise wherein you're making millets into an elite food. Okay, so that's not what we want, because the moment you make it elite food, the same story repeats, so the people will not be able to afford. And then our biggest concern that we are trying to address, that is the nutrition micronutrient deficiencies, the health benefits that we want to transfer to the individuals will not be achieved. So the objective is to create access, so make it affordable, so introduce them in the school meals, in the midday meal programs, ICDS, the public nutrition programs, and then provide common facility centers, involve self-help groups. So an access has to be created for everybody. At the same time, a value also needs to be created. When I say value, it is for the business. Why? Because as I mentioned earlier, India is a global hub of millets. So which tells us that we have something that the world wants. So that tells, or that calls for the need of transferring the technologies or transferring the commodities or trading the commodities outside India. Now, for that to happen, you need to have a strong positioning. Okay, so in such cases, definitely there is a value that is created. So it's a premium commodity. So you're going to make functional foods out of it, you're making specialty products out of it. So the convenience, the ready to eat, ready to cook, and instant foods are being made. So we need to have, or you need to focus on both an accessible proposition as well as a value proposition. So that doesn't make millet only an elite food. Okay, so it is available to the common man through all of efforts for mainstreaming in schools, in ICDS programs. At the same time, also have a huge market potential by positioning it as a premium commodity. So we talked of production, we talked of markets and creating the demand. So slowly we have been able to now understand what was the need for millets and how they are different. What is that we need to do to take them to the next level in terms of technology, in terms of awareness? That tells us, or that leads us to the question, what are those opportunities? So definitely the opportunities are larger than the grains. So it's what I'm trying to tell is, you have ample of business opportunities that have come up, especially in the last decade. Okay, again, thanks to the efforts of Nutri Hub and an excellent team there, wherein they are trying to create opportunities, throw light upon various dimensions that have either to not been looked upon. Say for example, you're able to create products for health and nutrition, you're able to drive it through exports, you're able to empower SHGs and FPOs, you're able to design and retrofit machineries. Then you are focusing on novel or disruptive technologies like creating some fortifications and then enhancing the shelf lives and things like that. Then you're also foraying into the concept of byproduct utilization, okay, wherein some biodegradable plates, cups kind of a thing can be made, or an animal feed. Some of it can go as an animal feed, okay. Some of it can go for composting. So, which means the entire plant can be used. So, if you look into the opportunity that you would like to make a business proposition out of this, so the opportunities are as wide and as huge that you can think of. So there are also people who are crafting beverages. So millet based beverages are known around the world. Of course, in some African countries, that's been traditionally consumed both as an alcoholic beverage and a non-alcoholic beverage. In India too, in parts of Meghalaya, Sikkim, Manipur, where you have millet-based beverages that are culturally and traditionally consumed by the people living there. But in the recent past, a lot of technological advancement is happening, and some of the startups or entrepreneurs are in place and who are foraying into developing millet-based beverages, both alcoholic and non-alcoholic, in other parts of the country as well. Now, having said all about millets, why they are important, why they are important not just for India but for the world. Okay, so there is enough, or there is excellent effort that India has done, put in the last decade. What is that we have to the world? So what is that India has taught to the world? If you would like to understand, first thing is public recognition creates an attention, which means awareness is important. First, you need to make people aware about the millets and the health benefits that they give and the advantages that they have and why they are important in the first place. So, if you are able to do that, an attention is created, and then naturally people would tend to prefer. Okay, so this is an evolving mechanism. It doesn't happen just over day or overnight. Procurement influences farmers' decisions. I was mentioning about something called as minimum support price in the previous slides. So, and I rather categorically mentioned the procurement is not in place. While I say so, some of the states in the country are doing procurement in certain regions. Say for example, in Karnataka, in southern parts of the state, ragi is being procured, while in the northern part of the state, sorghum is being procured. In state like Odisha, you have ragi being procured. Maybe in state like Maharashtra, you also have a little bit of sorghum being procured. In case of Chhattisgarh, you have the small millets being procured. In case of Uttarakhand, likewise, so ragi. So the states that have an advantage over a certain millet are trying to put the best efforts to initiate them in the procurement process, so that that creates a motivation for the farmers to grow. So that's an excellent model that we can always advocate. And then we have institutional programs that can create initial demand. When I say institutional programs, it could be your midday meals, or it could be introducing millet products in the schools, army canteens, colleges, universities. They are small, but they are captive. Maybe I think one such example we had in the state of Telangana few years ago, wherein an effort was made to introduce millets in the TGRTC buses, the RTC buses that commute or move from Hyderabad to different parts of the state, were given a millet product kit. So it was an effort by the RTC to promote millets. So that slowly creates demand. So we have a few of our startups who are actually doing it. So somebody introduces them in hospitals. So that creates a demand. So that's a captive. Then introducing them into food canteens of government offices. Okay, so these are small, but though they are institutional, but they are able to create the demand. So that once you get used to that, or once you get to know about such a commodity, definitely you will want to buy them more, and naturally a demand in the market is created. Processing technology determines the consumer acceptance. So what kind of technology that you employ? Okay, so these days you're able to see a huge awareness among the consumer fraternity as well. Okay, so the reading labels, understanding the nutrition, and then looking at the ingredients, looking at the additives that are being added. All of these form an integral component of today's consumer, or his interest or her interest. So, which is why they'll also look what technology is employed, and we should be able to provide such a product to them which is processed but without the loss of nutrition, and which is able to add value to the nutrition that they're looking for millets. When they choose millets, what is that they're looking for? They must be able to get that. Unlike indiscriminate polishing them, making them look very polished and then clean, and then giving them, but doing away with the or defeating the entire purpose of providing nutrition. So consumer acceptance also parallelly goes with the technology that you employ. Next, and the most important part is incubation. So incubation is something, is it's more like a bridge that connects your research, that connects your business. Both are happening parallelly. Now through incubation, you are trying to bring them on a common table. Okay, so that the person who wants to refine, who wants to develop, or who wants to improve upon his product can do it. At the same time, the person who has a business but does not have a commodity also can get access to such a commodity. It's a platform that brings all the expertise together, and then you're able to show, so with one integrated support, how the commodity can perform better. Regional targeting is better than universal substitution. So that's the reason I said every state has an important millet that they're growing, and not entire countries promoting millets. So because they are different millets, each state focuses on the region it has an advantage. Maybe Rajasthan promotes Bajra, Maharashtra and Karnataka promote sorghum, Tamil Nadu and Karnataka may promote ragi and small millets, Chhattisgarh may promote kodo and kutki, Uttarakhand may promote your barnyard and ragi, Odisha might promote little millet and ragi. So each of the states have their advantage, and targeting them regionally would add a lot of benefit in the outcome at the end. So the lesson for other countries is it's not just to copy India mechanically. The model must be adapted to the local crops, the food cultures, the institutions, the farming systems, and the consumer preferences. So this is what exactly I would rather call this a revolution that has been, created in India, and then now it's spreading its wings across the global south, especially wherein the millets are now being mainstreamed in different geographies around the world. Now, answering to the most important question, now I think by now we have understood how they could be the future of food. And the second part of it, why the millets matter more than ever now, is because you see their diversity. We have seen studies showing us that there is a gap within the nutrition, within the food that we consume, the diets that we consume. Okay, so the nutrition, the diversity, and then the climate resilience. So we have also seen how the climate change is going to impact the yields of other cereals. So when it's going to reduce the yields, there must be something else to supplement or complement that particular gap. And who does that? Millets are one of the best choices that have been, considered as an alternative cereal there. Less water dependent. This is equally important because today, when you say, for example, you're going to export rice to a country, that means you're not just exporting the grains there, you're also exporting your water. It's more like a virtual water trade that you're able to create. So you're transferring the resources, I mean, water resources through that commodity. So you understand there is a huge water shortage that is, in place in most of the countries and most of the states within India as well. So in such a scenario, those crops that can grow with minimal water or which can grow with the rainfalls or the rainfed situations could be the best choice. Economically viable farmers, it's because they hardly require any inputs. So the cost of cultivation is going to be as minimal as possible. He doesn't have to spend thousands of rupees for cultivating millets. Okay, so because he's not going to add enormous fertilizers, he's not going to add a lot of plant protection chemicals or pesticides to that. He's not going to do too much of interculture operations. So this is more like a natural way or natural farming that the farmer does. So which is why he's going to have an economical advantage for cultivating. And of course, accessible to consumers is one important thing. Why? Because as much as the farmer grows, the consumers are not getting, so that is not just lost to the farmers, it is also lost to the consumers, because you have ability to pay or you have the need to consume millets, but you're not able to get them. So that creates a gap for consumer end as well. So farmers making them available to the consumers is one part, and consumers are able to buy them in an affordable and an accessible manner is another important thing. The bottom line that I would like to stress upon here is millets are not the only future of food, but there can be no resilient future of food without millets. I think that makes the argument pretty much clear. So takes away all the competition part, takes away all the, versus model here. So you are not going to build a resilient future in the food systems without millets. So the future of food will not be secured merely by producing the more grains. It will be secured by producing the right crops in the right places with the right technologies for the right markets while delivering nutrition, conserving resources, and creating value for the farmers. Millets are ancient grains, but the decision to bring them back to the center of food policy is thoroughly a modern choice. So, with this, I'm at the end of my presentation.